Welcome, linkage institutions. Looking at the Electoral College now, first of two videos on the Electoral College. Alright, so what is the Electoral College? Well, maybe a better question is not what, but rather who. The Electoral College, it's people. They are the people who represent each state and officially elect the president. Okay, so basically the idea here is you do not directly elect the president. If you go and you vote in November, and you vote for Hillary or for Trump or for Obama or Romney or whatever election we're talking about, you vote for that person, you don't actually vote for them. Popular vote doesn't matter. What matters is the Electoral College. And so these are people, 538 of them, and they're the ones who actually cast the votes that officially elect the president. We're going to break this down step by step by step. Okay, so I kind of already spoiled a couple of these things. There are 538 total electoral votes. You need 270 to win. If you do the math, 538 divided by 2 equals 269. That would be a tie, so you need a simple majority. A majority of 538 is 270. So, majority of the Electoral College, 270, that means you win, and you get to be president, Mr. Obama. The popular vote does not matter. The popular vote means when we add up the total votes of who everybody in the country voted for, that doesn't mean anything. All that matters is who wins 270 electoral votes. Many of you are already familiar with this, but Al Gore in 2000, he won the popular vote. That means that on election day, more people voted for Al Gore. However, he did not get to become president because George W. Bush won more than 270 electoral votes, and Al Gore did not. Alright, so where does that number come from, this 538? Well, it's pretty simple actually. You take each state's, or the number of electoral votes each state gets is equal to the number of representatives that that state has, and that number is based on population, okay? And you add it to the number of senators that a state has. So, let me use Florida as the example. State of Florida, we have 29 electoral votes. 2 of them are because of our senators. And that is the same for every state because every single state, no matter how big or how small, has 2 senators. So 29 minus 2, that means that we have 27 members of the House of Representatives, and that is true. So we have 27 members of the House. Again, that one is based on population. That's why we have so much more than states like North or South Dakota or whatever else. So representatives plus senators. So if you add that up, you're missing 3. Those other 3 come from Washington, D.C. D.C. is not a state. However, it was granted to be part of the Electoral College with the 23rd Amendment. So it gets 3 electoral votes, and that's a total 538. All right, winner take all. This is, I think, the 3rd time now that we're seeing this term, winner take all. Every state is winner take all except for 2, and it might be hard to tell on this map. Nebraska, you can see there's a little purple asterisk next to it, and Maine also. There's a little asterisk next to that number 4. Those 2 states are not winner take all. The other 48 states are. Okay, so again, where do those numbers come from? That's the number of senators plus representatives that a state has. So you'll notice that the minimum number of electoral votes a state can have is 3, because that's the minimum amount of senators plus representatives. Every state gets 1 representative at least, and every state does get exactly 2 senators. So winner take all, every state other than Nebraska and Maine. Alright, this is a surprising statement. I don't want you to get too carried away with this and think that this is hugely important, because honestly it's not. But small states are actually really overrepresented by the Electoral College. And I don't know how good of a job that this table or this chart does. But here's the basic idea. We can do this. If you hate math and you're allergic to math, you might not like this part. State of Wyoming, state of Florida. Okay? State of Wyoming has 3 electoral votes. They have about 500,000 people in their state. I believe it's like 550,000. For my math purposes, we're going to call it 500,000 people. 500,000. They get 3 electoral votes for 500,000 people. State of Florida, we have about 20 million people in our state. For our 20 million people, we get 29 electoral votes. If you can do the math here, you should notice that something is really wrong with this, because they get 3 votes per 500,000 people. So let's just do the math. If Florida and Wyoming were going to be proportional to each other, so for every 500,000 residents you get 3 electoral votes. If Florida has 20 million people, that means that Florida should have about 120 electoral votes. 20 million, yep, times 6, so we should have 120 electoral votes. We only have 29. This small state is vastly overrepresented. Florida is actually underrepresented. Does that mean that Florida is not happy with this arrangement and that we are, not going to get focused on? Well, no, and that's because the next slide is what's really important. What states do candidates focus on? They focus on competitive, big, large states, also known as swing states. Your best examples of swing states typically are Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Colorado gets in there. Virginia, North Carolina. It depends on the election exactly, but I think that Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania are your most consistent swing states. So a swing state is a state that is both has a large number of electoral votes and is competitive. If you had noticed from the map, California has the most electoral votes, and yet that is not a state candidates focus on. The reason is because Democrats always win, at least recently, the last 20 or 30 years, I should say. Democrats win California. Texas, second largest state. They don't focus on that either because Republicans always win Texas. So as a result, they're going to focus on the states that are both large and competitive. So it's not just large, and it's not just competitive either, because if it was competitive and there are only 3 electoral votes, that might not be totally worth it. So large and competitive, and we call those swing states. If you want to write down another term, they are sometimes called battleground states as well. This has been a LaMoney production.